Good evening. Since 6:00 p.m., the board has been in closed session to discuss the following: the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district; litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of a particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal; and student disciplinary cases. I'll entertain a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
A motion and a second are heard. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are in open session. Welcome to the November 6th board meeting. Our mission is to educate students to be self-directed learners, collaborative workers, complex thinkers, quality producers, and community contributors. Ms. Bell, please call the roll.
Ambassador President Vanessa Eklund, board members Janet Yangrohr, Paul Leong, Donna Wanke, Fitzgerald, Terry Fielden, and Christine Gerke.
Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Item 4.01, good news.
I have great news. Congratulations to the Naperville North High School girls cross country team. On Saturday, they successfully defended their title as the Illinois High School Association Class 3A state champions, and we'll honor the team at our meeting on November 20th. Also, congratulations to the Naperville North High School boys soccer team. On Saturday, they successfully defended their title as the Illinois High School Association's Class 3A state champions, and they too will be honored on November 20th. And then finally, congratulations to Naperville Central High School math teacher Dave Sladke. Last week, I had the privilege of attending a dinner at Fermilab, where Dave was named as a finalist for the Presidential Awards for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. This award is the highest recognition that a kindergarten through 12th grade mathematics or science teacher may receive for outstanding teaching in the United States. And if he goes on to win, we'll bring him here and recognize him here as well. So great news, great things happening throughout the district.
That is indeed good news. We have come to the point in our agenda for public comment. Item 5.01. I do not have any slips of paper from anyone who is wishing to address the board. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board? Okay. Moving on. It is the time for action for consent. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second are heard. Please call the roll, Ms. Bell.
Leong,
Aye.
Gerke,
Yes.
Fitzgerald,
Aye.
Wanke,
Yes.
Yangrohr, Fielden,
Yes.
The motion passes. All right, moving on to item 7.01, student ambassador reports. Vanessa. These are new fancy microphones. It should be red. It's not.
Let's use that one.
Go for that one.
Okay. Well, I know. Well, first, our juniors took the practice SAT on October 25th. On Saturday, October 28th, students who registered for the ACT took it at Naperville Central. November 1st was the deadline for seniors to request their transcripts or letters of recommendation. Our theater students put on a show last Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. The play was called Our Town, and on Thursday, students were able to preview the show depending on their teacher and the class. On October 31st, we had our fall blood drive, which many students participated in, and on the same day, we also had vision and hearing screening. Some of our students also participated in Snowball that same week. Both our cross-country teams, boys and girls, went to state. Our boys finished in 15th place, but according to their Twitter page, that's their best finish since 2002. Our football team made it to the playoffs and defeated Homewood Flossmoor last Friday. Dynasty, our step team, placed second at their competition at Wheaton North. Our girls swim team will be going to state this weekend. This upcoming Thursday, our band will have a concert in the auditorium at 7 p.m. And on Thursday, our school will host a Southside Band concert in the auditorium at 7:30. On Friday, we will have our Veterans Day assembly, which Weesbrook actually plans. And last but not least, our father-daughter dance will be on Saturday, and our mother-son brunch will be on Sunday.
Hey, wow, a lot going on. Thank you for that report. That was wonderful. Okay, moving on to Superintendent Staff School Report, item 7.02.
For our first report, I'd like to invite our leadership team from Madison Junior High School to come to the presentation table. Every month, the Board of Education invites one of our schools to come before you and provide an update to you on their work towards school improvement. And this evening, we have the pleasure of hearing from Madison Junior High School, provide an update for you on all of the great work that they're doing. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Principal Erin Anderson.
Good evening. Is that good? My name is Erin Anderson. I'm the principal at Madison Junior High.
My name is Katie Gerardo. I'm the Assistant Principal of Curriculum and Student Services.
And I'm Andrea Shapansky. I'm the Assistant Principal of Curriculum and Operations.
On behalf of the Madison staff, thank you for providing us the opportunity to share the focused efforts of continuous improvement and closing growth gaps. In our presentation this evening, you will hear how we collaborate, utilize effective instructional strategies, and support all learners through responsive practices. In order to make a plan that meets the needs of our students, it is critical to know who we are. Madison is a school community who welcomes students from River Woods, Scott, and Meadow Glens, and feeds our students to Naperville Central. Madison has 616 students, in which our ethnic demographic are similar to the district profile. Approximately 17% of our students have a learning plan, such as a 504 or an IEP. We are proud that 52% of our staff share in district-level leadership opportunities. Listed here on this slide is the building leadership team at Madison Junior High. The role of the department coordinator is facilitating dialogue focused on standards by studying data and utilizing culturally responsive and effective instructional practices that meet student needs. Next, team leaders facilitate professional conversations focused on SEL and aligning these targets in both structured and unstructured settings. And finally, learning support coaches and administrators collaborate in making meaning of data to guide professional learning. There are many interconnected systems between the district-level vision and building-based implementation that are coordinated to support teaching and learning. These include the district strategic blueprint, school improvement SMART goals and benchmarks, Rising Star indicators and action plans, and professional practices. The impact of the district strategic blueprint has manifested in changes within our middle school as we prepare students to be college and career ready. 1.16b has resulted in curriculum realignment to the Common Core standards. We utilize new math resources, enriched literacy practices, and have integrated HST learning standards within the science and social science areas. 1.16d expanded the integration of STEM practices. In addition to the exploratory course of Project Lead the Way, students prepare for a global society through the embedded elements within the next generation science standards. We are eager to see where 1.20b, the middle school study, will take us in the future. In 2013, we began utilizing the Rising Star process for self-evaluation on our current practices. Through this process, we identified 3 indicators that continue to guide the actions of the building leadership team. Madison's actions for creating personalized learning for students is rooted in identifying needs through standardized assessments. Here are 4 years of all school performance series results for math growth. Our analysis has us focusing in on the trends, which in this graph demonstrates an increase of students far exceeding their growth expectations while simultaneously decreasing the number of students in the below or far below expectation category. Our analysis goes much further into determining which instructional actions supported sustained student growth over time. In addition, we analyze our underrepresented demographic groups such as our Black and African American students, low-income students, and students with disabilities. This learning trend chart represents demographic groups identified as having performed below standards. These charts help us identify students who met and did not meet grade level targets. We are excited to see an increase in students who are meeting expectations, which is contributing to empowering our learners and impacting achievement gaps. While the Rising Star process provided a structure, we needed a more tangible tool to measure student growth and achievement.
Beginning with the 2017-18 school year, the District 203 school improvement format has been enhanced with the use of SMART goals as a tool for measuring progress, identifying goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based, combined with our Rising Star Action Plan, enables us to efficiently measure student growth and achievement. While our actions will benefit all learners, the way we measure progress will be in closing the gaps in the SMART goals. To determine if our measures were attainable and realistic, PARCC data was analyzed to identify relevant trends over the past 2 testing periods. A specific focus on math and reading achievement will be critical in ensuring all students are college and career ready. The measures to indicate progress are to track positive impacts on learning gaps between our low-income students compared to their peers. Our SMART goals incorporate a 2-year action plan that is both attainable and realistic because there are numerous benchmarks to inform if adjustments are necessary. 2017-18 is the first year of the implementation of the District 203 SEL learning standards. With no trend data, we are in the process of developing assessment tools for future use. The current SEL goals are a result of various surveys and inventories that were completed by students, parents, and staff, including the State 5 Essentials Survey and the Illinois Youth Survey. While statistics inform the impact of our practices, it is in the coordinated efforts of multiple systems of support that influence the culture of learning and ultimately the success of our students. The 3 indicators from the Rising Star process provide a robust action plan where the tasks are led by staff and have measurable outcomes connected to the SMART goals. The first indicator, TL9, focused on 21st century learning skills, including communication, critical thinking, collaboration, and creativity. We believe innovative instruction will result in students who can analyze problems, generate higher level questions, and effectively communicate. Learning experiences are designed to invite students to collaborate on inquiry-based projects that require flexible thinking as they utilize technology. When collaborating, students may work face-to-face in open settings such as the STEM zone, or in the Learning Commons, or online in a blended learning environment. Our action plan connects to the first 2 academic SMART goals. Second is IID-10, which is focused on teams of teachers utilizing data to inform their practices. In addition to meeting as a department monthly, teachers meet in content-alike PLCs several periods a week. Here, data can be explored and strategies discussed for differentiating instruction. Teachers collaborate on flexible lessons connected to all learning standards of the curriculum. However, every 6 weeks, the Math and Language Arts PLCs conduct a by-student, by-standard meeting to discuss the essential standards. The essential standards were identified by PLCs and reflect critical thinking, critical learning that every child at every grade level will demonstrate proficiency in as they progress through that core curriculum. The data conversations result in instruction that is culturally responsive and aligned to student needs. To support all learners, there may be a reallocation of building resources to be responsive in providing reteaching to students who need intensive interventions. Recently, our staff reviewed and rebooted our Homework Club and Early Birds program to help meet the needs of this population of students. In the past, students identified as benefiting from a strategic learning experience, such as reteaching or needing additional practice, were assigned to strategic reading or math classes. New to Madison this year is the push-in model to deliver interventions to students who are identified as needing additional support or enrichment. The final indicator is CL9, which is focused on the connectedness and collaboration throughout our entire community. Unique to our school is the WEB program, which supports the transition of students to Madison. 8th grade web leaders participate in a leadership boot camp during the summer, which is facilitated by Madison staff. The purpose of the training is to develop student leadership skills. This year, Madison had 92% participation during the web orientation. The 4-hour program engaged students in a PEP assembly and community building activities facilitated by 8th grade web leaders. Throughout the year, leaders will check in with their 6th grader, have lunch, go on a field trip, and even teach lessons in the classroom, developing skills such as study strategies and time management. Additionally, as we connect with students, we continue to seek meaningful ways to integrate student culture, learning styles, and interests as we work towards implementing our SEL action plan. Recognizing transitioning to middle school takes time and a village, we involve parents as well. The parents are invited into Madison during the final hour of the web orientation and learned how to support their child during the first day, week, and month of school. This year, parents wrote a message and it was hung on the wall of the cafeteria to greet their child during the first weeks of school.
Relationships are the foundation for all learning at Madison. To this end, staff collaborated on unique welcome back to school videos that were sent home, as well as personal phone calls made during the first week. Also, we reignited our partnership with the feeder elementary schools to assist in the transition process and look forward to partnering with Scott School and providing reading opportunities and mentoring with middle school students in the summer. Establishing relationships early is the key to a successful transition. There are many celebrations to honor as a result of the work we are doing at Madison. Over the past 2 years, the staff have been trained on restorative practices that focus on the following 5 characteristics: relationships, respect, responsibility, restoration, and reintegration. As a result of many of our efforts, we have seen a significant decrease in the total number of discipline referrals. The end result is that the students have increased the amount of time in class and learning is more accessible. For example, this data chart represents the 2-year comparison of data of student reading growth. Please note that all groups on the chart showed growth in meeting their target. The low income as well as students with disabilities exploded in their reading growth. Another celebration is student growth in the area of math. This is another representation of where there is an increase in all demographic groups meeting or exceeding their expected target gains. At Madison, we strive to be the best. For example, the counseling department was recognized for excellence as an outstanding team representing District 203 in the 2016 Those Who Excel Awards. Likewise, Madison has rated in the top 5 public middle schools in the state of Illinois for the past several years, and we are proud to be recognized by the Niche Report as one of the top 2 public middle schools in the state of Illinois for 2018. Due to the hard work and positive attitudes of our office team, custodial crew, classroom and office assistants, and instructional staff, Madison consistently meets the needs of all learners and is engaged in a continuous improvement cycle.
Okay, thank you for that wonderful report. Do we have questions from the board?
I'll make a comment.
Okay.
So my daughter has actually decided to go into teaching, and she's a senior now at ISU. And we were talking, and we were down over the weekend for Parents Weekend, which is kind of strange to be going down there. But we were talking about discipline because now she's apprentice teaching or going to different schools and so forth, and she realized the importance of not only getting control of discipline, but then keeping the student inside the school facility as opposed to suspension and so forth, because it just further promulgates learning. And I was pleased here that your discipline events have gone down. I think that's a step in the right direction, and I think there's a hidden benefit to that just pays off later on in life to keeping the child engaged and finding out what the problem is so they can continue to learn and become productive citizens. So I think, if anything I saw on your report, that's probably the most important thing that you're accomplishing.
Thank you. Donna. And do you have a question? Okay.
I'm really impressed with some of the numbers you're reporting here, and they're just a wow. I would like to ask about your 2-year SMART goals. They seem to be focusing on performance series, and we've got a number here of 70%. Could you tell us what the current number is so we have a benchmark to see how aggressive that goal is?
Sure. We are currently, as of last spring, at 57%. Our focus has been to push ourselves anywhere from 6 to 10 percentage points of growth in various areas over these next 2 years. And so we have those benchmarks within the plan. As we make changes instructionally, that will inform whether the changes we're putting into place are supporting our students and making it a little bit more realistic or attainable for the staff year to year.
And as a follow-up, again, we're talking about here on the SMART goals about the low-income students. Do we have any other goals for all students or any other groups of students? I would hope all students.
Certainly. I would say our school improvement plan is designed to touch the lives of every child at Madison Junior High. How we're measuring our progress is through that particular demographic group. Our focus is in closing the achievement gap and growth gap by increasing learning for all students, but at an accelerated rate for some of our underperforming student demographic groups. So the plan is targeting all students, just in terms of the measure, we're really tracking our progress, whether we're closing that gap.
Thank you.
Donna.
Thank you so much for the report. I was going to say similar things. The performance series, the numbers, the increases that you have for the subgroups of like 29% and 32% from like just from a year ago, that's like statistically crazy. Like that's awesome. I was wondering though, as we're looking at, so the performance series is doing that, but then as we're looking at PARCC, we're not necessarily seeing, if I'm looking at it correctly, we're not necessarily seeing those same huge gaps. And I know that you've looked at the data. I hope, and if you can't answer this, it's okay. We'll get it at a different time because I didn't think about it till just now. Sure. But why are we seeing so much improvement in one and then not necessarily as much in the PARCC?
I think there's a variety of factors that go into that, and just a few that I can name would include student growth is going to come before the achievement. So we're seeing student growth, which really is their hitting their expected learning target or exceeding that at, within a school year. That's going to need to occur before we actually land into that achievement realm. We also analyzed and got down to taking a look at exactly who are those students and what that difference is really comes down to approximately 15 students. So the percentage looks, 5%, but it comes down to 15 individual students. And whether that is partially due to the decrease of size of Madison. Madison has decreased in student population over the last couple of years. We aren't 100% sure, but what we are 100% sure is how we're addressing that, and that when we refer to restructuring how we're intervening for students and doing a push-in model so we can get all students access to support, not just students enrolled in a strategic class. That's one way. Another way is what we're doing is by student, by standard. So every 6 weeks, we're having conversations about what students need in terms of accelerating with that standard, or students that are struggling, and we're putting in interventions immediately. So we're doing that we're intervening all the time, but we're formally putting interventions in every 6 weeks. So we anticipate that those will dramatically change that outcome for this coming school year.
Well, I think that's just amazing, because I know one of the things that I think I asked Dan my very first few weeks of election is how can we get something similar to an IEP? And I know not 40-page document, but for each student in place. And when you're looking at by student, by standard, that's effectively what you're doing. You're making an individual plan for each student. So I appreciate that. So thank you. And that brings me to my second question on that slide by student, by standard. You said that you've made adjustments after looking at the data with Homework Club and Early Bird due to the data. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what adjustments, and just because I want the greater good to know, if you're having so much success, it'd be great if we can all learn from that.
Sure. I'll just start off by saying a big thank you to NEF for supporting our before after school programming. I'm going to defer to Katie Gerardo, assistant principal, because she's really shouldered the conversations amongst staff this fall, and how can we best utilize those resources. So I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
So I worked in collaboration with a committee to look at how we can restructure and utilize that time really as intervention time, as opposed to just students who needed assistance with homework. And so what we are doing, and still measuring to see if we see the growth that we need to see, it is very early. We just started this at the middle of October. Is we have asked teachers to actually initiate the utilization of that time. So if they see in these by student, by standard meetings, students who are below standard in our essential standards, if they see students who require more interventions within a particular standard or with a particular skill set, they're asked to recommend them for that time and provide the work to the teachers that are intervening during that time. So that's how we've worked to restructure homework clubs specifically. We've asked them to use early birds for that way, for that purpose as well. But we've also utilized, or also kind of kept the idea that early birds is also available for students who just need that time. So we've kind of done a hybrid of both so that we can meet the needs of our entire student population.
Thank you so much. I'm Madison's liaison this year, and so looking forward to seeing and getting to know more about what you're doing. So thank you, and thanks for all those wonderful numbers.
Thank you. Do you have a question? Christine.
With your the web leaders, is that 8th graders and 6th graders that are paired up?
Yes.
So then, like, all the 6th graders have like a mentor essentially. So then, have you seen a decrease in any of the incidents specifically with 6th graders since you've implemented this? Like, has the transition helped bring those numbers down?
Certainly. I'm going to talk a little bit about some academic components, and then I'll defer to Mrs. Shapansky about some of our behavior. We did quite a study last year in taking a look at 6th grade is really being a benchmark in terms of predicting students' graduation and post-high school in terms of their attendance rate needing to be 90% or higher to stay on track, and then their academics obviously staying in the passing standards realm. We saw a dramatic jump academically across the board for all of our students from the very beginning of last school year. Often that kind of hits into the second quarter window of time, or for us, the second trimester. We found the first trimester, the students coming on very strong academically, which we attributed with one data point primarily, but we attributed to the fact that they were very comfortable and assimilated to Madison very quickly. Andrea can talk a little bit more about some behavioral information.
The web program is an amazing program because it does focus on the transition process and helping kids feel comfortable right from the beginning. Before they even walk in as a student, they're a part of a greater community. And so having that 8th grade mentor reach out to the students and personally invite them to Madison in the summertime for their 4-hour orientation has been spectacular. I do deal with discipline in my office, and I will say when we have kids that feel connected to the school and have resources like an 8th grade mentor, and those kids are role models. They interview for that position. They feel so connected, and I feel like the dramatic decrease, this is our second, or I'm sorry, this is really our third year. We did a hybrid year 1, year 2 was last year, and then really year 3 this year. We have seen a decrease in the total number of discipline referrals in my office, a dramatic decrease. And we can definitely attribute that to the lessons that our 8th grade mentors also deliver to our students. They talk about study skills, they talk to kids about managing their time, and a lot about what it means to be a war hawk and walk through the halls, demonstrating respect and taking responsibility for their actions. And one of the things that I pride myself on is I talk to kids a lot about taking ownership and responsibility for their actions. And everything, I try to turn everything around to being a learning experience. And so if we have an issue in my office and a kid can learn and grow from that experience, that's what's going to happen. And I will tell you, I have a lot of just maybe one-time offenders and not necessarily a lot of repeat offenders. That number has decreased over the last few years as well. And as Terry mentioned earlier, we do keep our kids in school. Now, with restorative practices and the change, a little bit of a change in our philosophy, we do keep kids in school. I do utilize in-school suspension, but we only suspend out on the most extreme cases. So we try to keep kids in that learning environment as frequently as possible.
Yep, Janet.
Hi, thank you very much. That was really interesting, especially that answer. So I don't know if this question is for you or maybe Dan or the cabinet, but like when we have programs like that are so successful, this kind of 8th grade, 6th grade mentoring, like what are the mechanisms to make sure it like gets passed on to the rest of the schools in the district?
Yep. Part of what we do through our district leadership team is we do peer reviews, and we share information regarding our school improvement plans and some of our initiatives that we've seen success with. We also do level meetings with our principals, both the elementary level, the junior high school level, and also at the high school level, so they have an opportunity to share information about some of the programs that they're doing. While this is a success for them, others, the 4 other junior high schools may have a program trying to accomplish the same goals, but looks differently or sounds differently. Great credit to them in what's going on there. I believe you modeled this off of what Central does, right? Knowing about the LINK program and what happens up at Naperville Central. So there are a lot of opportunities for our principals to be able to share information and strategies with each other.
Okay, a couple quick questions. Thanks for the review. It was exciting to see the growth, and I also am excited to see it translate to achievement. That's exciting too. I have a couple questions on your SEL goals. First of all, it was exciting to me. I didn't catch through the slide in the presentation earlier that you engaged parents in your process of preparing your students, which I love. I think that's really exciting to see you reach out and help to support them in supporting their students. So that's very exciting. You also mentioned that you're working on improving students' attention and grit. How are you doing that? I know that grit is one of those things that should also help to translate to that achievement. So what kinds of things are you working on to try to really work on those skills?
Interestingly enough, some of it is professional development with staff in helping design learning experiences that require students to make a variety of choices. And in fact, I just was in a class last week, and the teacher overtly prepared the students because they were going to be solving a variety of puzzles to get to a solution. And she alerted them, you are going to feel frustrated. What are ways in which you can problem solve when you get frustrated? I think one of the things that our outstanding staff does is they are great at anticipating where students might go wrong, and they fill that gap in their instruction, which is great teaching. At the same point, we want to give the students the opportunity to learn in that process. Should they become frustrated or they make an error, where can they somewhat correct that or redirect themselves? So we see it in content directly. We also have teachers actually teaching part of a class period or even an entire class period on an SEL type of a lesson where they are actually focused in on things such as resiliency and how do you bounce back and who's your support group, everything from that to just various ways in which you can resolve an issue or a problem. All of that, I think, contributes to that grit and that ability just to stick to it when you face something that's difficult.
I love seeing your emphasis there, both academically as well as social and emotionally. And I also loved seeing your goal that you're really bringing in your parents, because I think they're part of that equation too, and helping them to know what kind of messages to reinforce at home and even things that they can do to help support. That really does help to strengthen your students. So thank you for that too.
Just along those lines, if I could just say, parents are so important, obviously, and we're so grateful for all of our parents. I have to acknowledge that our home and school president, Mrs. Melissa Fosco, is here in the audience. That's the kind of support we have at Madison Junior High, where she gave up her Monday evening and came out just to support this presentation. And you know, we are fortunate to have her in her leadership role, the entire leadership team of our home and school. And in my 16 years at Madison, I've been blessed with that type of support from our parent community.
Thank you for introducing her, and thank you for your support. That partnership is so important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicely done, team. It is now my pleasure to introduce to the board Dr. Patrick Knowlton, our Assistant Superintendent for Assessment and Accountability. And Patrick is going to come before the board this evening to update you and share results from our most recent PARCC assessment, and overall just really provide an overall achievement summary for you. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Knowlton.
Okay, it's a pleasure to be here. Good evening, Board of Education. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you the results of our accountability assessments based on the 2016-17 academic year. I'd like to thank all of the individuals that played a part in this, the collection of this information and the understanding of this data. The data presented this evening reflect very positively on the accomplishments of this school district, resulting from a supportive community and a strong faculty from pre-K through 21. We have several outcomes to achieve this evening. It is my hope that you will develop an understanding of how our district performs academically in the areas of English, language arts, and literacy, or ELA, as it's commonly called, and mathematics. We will review our Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers, also known as PARCC, and data at the district grade student group level. In the past, we've referred to these groups as subgroups. Additionally, we will become familiar with our performance on these assessments relative to our benchmark school districts. We will gain an understanding of how these results are translated into addressing academic strengths and weaknesses, performance gaps at the district, school, and student group levels. We will also review the final ACT graduating class data for which every student will have participated. This is based on the students that graduated in the spring of 2017. We'll begin to understand the SAT as an accountability measure and how our junior class performed during the first administration in the spring of 17. As a district, our academic performance is exemplary in the areas of English, language arts, literacy, and mathematics. relative to the state of Illinois and benchmark district performance. In fact, we're the highest of the unit districts in the state of Illinois in terms of our overall achievement. In the areas of English language arts and literacy, 70% of our students met or exceeded the standards. In the area of mathematics, 63% of our students met or exceeded standards. On the ACT, the graduating class of 2017 demonstrated improved performance relative to the year before and continued to perform significantly higher than the state average. On the SAT, the spring 2017 results indicated that 70 and 69% of our students met or exceeded English language arts, literacy, and mathematics Illinois learning standards, respectively. The PARCC assessment has been administered for the past 3 years. It is aligned with the Illinois learning standards in ELA and mathematics at grades 3rd through 8th. Testing times range from 4 to 4.5 hours, depending on the subject and the grade level. Last spring, we administered the PARCC to nearly 7,200 students in April. Our participation rate was well above the minimum 95% threshold as established by the state of Illinois. As an assessment, PARCC exhibits strengths, including its alignment to Illinois learning standards, assessment of student knowledge, concepts, and skills, using an online interactive platform that requires students to engage in higher order thinking and problem solving using technology-enhanced items is a significant strength. This is a substantial departure from the traditional multiple choice or selected response format of the past in which a student simply identified the correct answer. Additionally, the exposure of students to online assessments gives them an opportunity to gain familiarity with the manner in which they will take assessments into the future. The limitations of PARCC include its uncertain future and its current configuration. We know that we will be held accountable to Illinois learning standards, but the comparability of these assessments into the future is uncertain. There's been much criticism of the amount of testing time. This requires a trade-off between the validity of sampling learning standards and deriving meaningful information without becoming too burdensome in terms of time. Students in Naperville 203 often receive instruction, as you know, above their current grade level. PARCC assesses grade level expectations regardless of whether or not a student is being taught at or above grade level. In an ideal world, students are assessed on the level of content in which they are being taught on a daily basis. These assessments are summative in nature, meaning they measure end-of-year expectations. They possess less instructional relevance than formative assessments, which are by definition instructionally meaningful. It may be helpful to think of summative assessments as being about learning that has occurred, and formative assessments are more about learning as it is occurring. Lastly, the level of detail in terms of interpretable and actionable results is very limited. We do get a sense of where students are performing relative to standards, but there's really no information at the student skill level that could guide instruction more meaningfully. Okay, this chart shows our overall performance on PARCC expressed as percentages of students that have met or exceeded standards in both ELA and mathematics. Each bar corresponds to the group of students in grades 3 through 8 that were administered the assessment in that particular academic year. Just make sure you understand that those are percentages. They're not counts or anything, they're actual percentages. This year corresponds to the second half, the year rather, corresponds to the second half of the calendar year. For example, on the chart, 2017 corresponds to the 16-17 academic school year. This chart reflects exemplary performance as a district in both ELA and mathematics. With 3 data points for each subject, we note a generally upward trend in both subject areas. This chart displays the dramatic differences that are evident between the percentage of students that met or exceeded standards in Naperville 203 compared to the state of Illinois averages. Essentially, 6 to 7 out of 10 students in Naperville 203 met or exceeded ELA literacy and mathematics standards. This chart exhibits our upward trend in performance gains in both ELA and mathematics at the 3rd grade level across time. Similarly, we've demonstrated a gain in the percentage of students proficient in ELA and mathematics at the 4th grade level. This chart shows our upward trend in ELA and a variable performance pattern in mathematics at the 5th grade level. Not every school demonstrated a decline in mathematics proficiency. We've identified the specific schools that had a significant decline and are providing supports. On this chart is displayed our upward trend in ELA proficiency and a modestly upward trend in mathematics at the 6th grade level. This chart reflects high levels of proficiency in ELA and mathematics that is largely stable at the 7th grade level. And this chart exhibits our largely stable performance in ELA at the 8th grade level and variable proficiency in mathematics at the exact same grade level. The declines in both subjects were not present in all junior high schools. Schools that demonstrated a decline are receiving support. Following slides exhibit our performance of various student groups for which we are held accountable. As with the prior charts, the numbers reflect percentages of students meeting or exceeding. In this case, we're looking at ELA standards. Please keep in mind that these are averages across the entire school district, and schools typically present with their own profile of strengths and weaknesses or challenges. As a district, our race ethnicity performance within each group is trending up in ELA. This is very positive. This slide demonstrates or displays 3 student groups' performance within the ELA standards. All 3 student groups are substantially trending positive. The results of this slide speak to the incredible efforts of our teaching staff in working with students at risk for academic difficulties. Keep in mind that students identified with English learner needs and in their first year in a U.S. school are exempt from taking the ELA portion of the PARCC. This applies to other accountability assessments as well. Just a rule. This slide displays our mathematics proficiency by student race ethnicity group. Please note the upward trend among our students of Hispanic, Latino, and Black African American backgrounds. This slide displays the steady proficiency goals, or gains rather, of our students that fall into these 3 student groups. All gains are statistically and educationally significant and meaningful as well. On this chart, you can see our relative standing compared to our benchmark districts in the area of ELA. We clearly stand out amongst our peers. This slide represents the excellence and accomplishments of this district, possessing exceptional students and amazing staff and supportive parents and community. This chart also demonstrates our excellence in the area of mathematics relative to district peers, district benchmark peers, and the state of Illinois. First and foremost, our PARCC results inform us of individual student performance relative to expected standards. The impressions and understandings that teachers gain from day-to-day instruction, instructional interactions with students are as, if not more relevant and incorporated into understanding individual student learning needs. We examine our results at many levels, including district, school, grade, and student group. Each school is provided with their own profile of performance from a summary level down to the individual student level. These results are interpreted in light of other achievement results, like we were talking about before, including our performance series, proficiency and growth data, and district benchmark assessments. We use these results and prior year results to understand how we are functioning relative to expectations associated with standards. This supports our understanding of professional learning needs as well. In place of the PARCC, the Dynamic Learning Maps Alternate Assessment, or DLM-AA, is administered as developmentally appropriate to our students with the most significant cognitive and adaptive disabilities. These are students for which administering the PARCC would be developmentally inappropriate and unreasonable. As the slide indicates, 88 students were administered the DLM-AA in the spring. The DLM-AA is aligned to the essential elements in the areas of ELA and mathematics. The essential elements identify grade level specific expectations and are related to the learning standards of the general population. This assessment is conducted online at all levels and has been for the last 3 years. This chart summarizes the performance of students that were administered the DLM-AA during the past 3 years. Please note recent gains in ELA and mathematics. Although we have noted recent improvement in ELA and mathematics, we continue and acknowledge the need for higher performance for this group of students. The spring of 2016 was the final district administration of the ACT for every high school student. The state of Illinois now requires the administration of the SAT as a graduation requirement for all juniors and all students that are graduating from high school. The above results reflect the performance of the senior classes, with the most recent being those that graduated this past spring. That's what 2017 means, so it's the seniors that graduated then. As you can see, our final data point increased. This data point is based on the most recent administration of the ACT for those seniors in their last 3 years of high school. It's not the highest, it's just the last most recent. The Illinois average increase is due to the fact that many students across the state did not take the ACT, as it was not state funded that year and optionally district funded. In fact, approximately 22,000 fewer students across Illinois took the ACT that year than the prior year. The SAT was administered statewide for accountability purposes for the first time on April 5th of 2017. Per the Illinois State Board of Education, the SAT is the current accountability measure for high schools measuring student proficiency in both ELA and mathematics. Grade 11, 12 English language arts literacy standards are aligned with the SAT ELA portion. The Illinois Learning Standards for high school mathematics are aligned with the SAT math in the areas of number, quantity, algebra, functions, modeling, geometry, and statistics and probability. All students are required to take the SAT to graduate. There are exceptions, such as students that take the DLM-AA. From an accountability perspective, the SAT provides information regarding whether or not a student demonstrates proficiency relative to state standards. The College Board also has its own criteria to determine college and career readiness. So there's two different things that are being measured by the same assessment. This chart displays the structure of the SAT. At the top, you see the total score, which is based on performance in two sections: evidence-based reading and writing and mathematics, analysis and science, and history and social studies are considered cross-tests, as the results are based on items that are embedded with the evidence-based reading and writing and mathematics sections. The evidence-based reading and writing area is further broken down into reading, writing, and language. The subscales within evidence-based reading and writing include words in context, command of evidence, expression of ideas, and standard English conventions. Subscales within mathematics include the heart of algebra, passport to advanced mathematics, and problem-solving data analysis. In total, the entire SAT results in 15 total scores that correspond to each of the above rectangles on the slide. National percentile ranks are the primary norm-referenced reporting metric in addition to college and career readiness benchmark status. This table reflects, kind of small to read, but it reflects the score relationship between the new SAT and the ACT. The SAT total score range is 400 to 1600. This changed about in the last 3 years. It was rescaled. In contrast to the ACT composite score range from 0 to 36. Because of these differences in possible low to high scores, multiple SAT scores correspond to a single ACT score. This is an improvement as it reflects greater precision and sensitivity to student growth. The arrow highlights the maximum score, and then the second arrow highlights our average as a district. This chart displays our exemplary SAT performance with respect to the percentage of students meeting or exceeding standards relative to the state of Illinois average. These proficiency thresholds were very recently released by the state of Illinois. This chart identifies the percentage of students that met or exceeded ELA and mathematics standards by student group as measured by the SAT. Please note that the English learner group consists only of 20 students. On this table, I've identified 5 major areas of assessment with scale score ranges in parentheses. So that's the low to high possible for each of those scales. I provide the average scores to display the comparable levels of performance across evidence-based reading and writing and mathematics. Additionally, there are no educationally meaningful or significant performance differences when comparing analysis in science or analysis in history and social studies. With respect to district-level performance, this table outlines that our average total score performance corresponds to a national percentile rank of 78. So an average student in this district functions at the national 78th percentile. That's tremendous. You can see that on all other subscores, they fall within a very similar range of performance. Please note that our average is very different and much higher than a nationally representative sample of grade level peers on every dimension assessed by the SAT. This chart summarizes our ELA proficiency percentages relative to our benchmark districts. And this next chart summarizes our mathematics proficiency percentages relative to our benchmark districts as measured by the SAT as well. This slide displays the percentage of students that are considered college and career ready as defined by the SAT benchmarks. So it's different than proficiency relative to standards. As you may have noticed, a greater proportion of students are considered college and career ready than the proportion meeting or exceeding standards in either area. This is because there are different score thresholds for each metric. The level of performance required to be college and career ready is lower than the level of performance required to have met or exceeded standards in the state of Illinois in ELA and mathematics. From a college, so basically 2 different questions are being asked and answered using the exact same set of data. From a college and career readiness perspective, the SAT provides a metric that predicts a 75% likelihood of achieving at least a C in a first semester credit-bearing college level course. The evidence-based reading and writing benchmark corresponds to courses in history, literature, social science, and writing. The mathematics benchmark corresponds to courses in algebra, statistics, pre-calculus, or calculus, again, as a first-year student. Which students have met Illinois learning standards as measured by the SAT is the accountability question this test answers. Which students are considered college and career ready as measured by the SAT is the applied predictive question. SAT individual student reports will only reflect college and career readiness performance and not whether or not that individual particular student met standards, based on the state of Illinois expectations in either ELA or math. Some celebrations, just to summarize, our district exhibits a very high level of proficiency in both English language arts and mathematics as measured by both PARCC and SAT. Additionally, our levels of college and career readiness as defined by the College Board are remarkable. Lastly, our accountability data reflect improvements in both ELA and mathematics across all English learners, special education, economic disadvantage, Black, African American, and Hispanic Latino student groups. These results reflect growth and absolutely should be celebrated. All right, at this time, I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have regarding any aspect of the content of this presentation. I have to take a sip of water.
Thank you for that excellent and detailed presentation. Questions from the board? Okay, Donna?
Wow, thank you for all the data. That's amazing.
That's all fire hose.
Something that you mentioned that I wasn't able to catch when we were looking at it ahead of time was that in slide 13 and 16, you identified schools that were exhibiting declines, and then you said that they were receiving supports. Can you speak a little bit more to what the supports are that they're receiving?
Some of those supports really have to do, and Jen can jump in a little bit. I just want to bump up to the slide you're referring to. You said 13 and 16?
13 and 16 were both.
We're looking at just sort of systemically what's going on in the areas of ELA and mathematics. We try to take a look at how students are performing on district benchmark assessments, the internally developed assessments that measure standards directly. We're also looking at information in alignment with the performance series, really to see if there's instructional or curricular issues in terms of coverage and performance. It's a big enough district where a change like that is noticeable. But we're also trying to triangulate information and look at other places to see if that's replicated in other data sets. But practically speaking, we've talked a little bit about through the school improvement process of trying to address needs if there are any in those areas as well. Sure.
Okay, no one else has questions? She was going to give us more. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
I actually think Patrick said, quite a bit, but I know focusing on those school improvement efforts, I think you see that change with Madison's presentation, that we have specific goals toward mathematics for all of our schools. Within that, there are very clear and concrete action steps. You also see the work that's going on with our learning support coaches. We have a lot of work going on right now with instructional practices. And then, of course, if a specific school needs that, the way in which we're looking at our data is you heard Mrs. Anderson say, by student, by standard. So you'll see a lot more depth in that area of where we can actually be as diagnostic as possible. One of our main sources of information are the formative and summative assessments that the classroom teachers are giving. That actually give us more information than the PARCC does. So they're utilizing those assessments very much to move students forward. And then, of course, we're providing resources to particular schools who need them. And then we've also really looked at where is it a few students because of population. I think Patrick said that too, where population declines, and where is it actually a larger group of students that need more support.
We've really tried to drill down to which group or groups of students, at the grade level, contributed to that decline. Why was there, and in some cases, we've been able to isolate a specific, student group specifically. And, the tragedy, or maybe not tragedy, that's kind of strong, but the PARCC thing really doesn't tell us the why part. It kind of gives us a global overall sense, like Jen was saying, of, it went down, but it's not diagnostic. It doesn't take us to the place where we go, oh, this is where we were weaker. We don't get item analysis. We get very limited feedback. And so a lot of it, like Jen said, involves looking at other data sources to see if we find patterns elsewhere.
So are we seeing the, and this is a broader question that maybe you don't have the answer to, but Erin had said that she's seeing the significant increases in the performance series because that's more growth, and then they're hoping it's going to translate into the PARCC for achievement. Are we seeing that at all the other schools as well?
As a trend overall, we do. There's
Awesome.
variation in schools. And you're talking about two academic measures that are really, they're trying to measure the same thing, but they get at it in different ways. So there's never like a perfect correlation. And we really, the PARCC issues, it's one data point in an entire year. And so, we try to look at trends. We try to look at, over time, what are the changes that we've seen. But we're trying to really take a look and evaluate information we have that help us understand where the needs are beyond just the PARCC as, PARCC's the accountability measure. It's the measure that everybody eventually looks at. So, yeah, no problem.
Terry?
So is the PARCC, taking the PARCC exam, is it worth the effort? Do we get anything from it?
Oh, why did you ask me that question?
Oh, because I must.
Is it worth it, cost benefit, right, or return on
That's,
investment?
we'll see, what's the ROI? I mean, if I just cruise the internet a little bit here on it, there's only 9 states in the PARCC consortium remaining, right?
Yeah, I thought it was even less.
It feels like
it's well, first of all, it's not something we can control.
Right, I understand that, but that wasn't my question.
Yeah. Is it worth it? I mean, it is a lot of effort, time, and energy, and that is, and having been here now, but having known this in other settings, the effort has gone in with adult familiarity and student familiarity. There's less, it's still time consuming. I don't.
You want help with that?
I don't get a lot.
You want help with that question?
Sure. We don't get as much back as I thought.
I would say that the promise of what PARCC was supposed to be hasn't resulted in what we thought it would be. Okay, I still believe it's a better assessment than what we had prior to it, and it is aligned to the standards that we're being held accountable to. So, I don't know if you can always say it's always going to be worth the time and the effort, but it is the accountability tool that we have right now that we have to. So it has to be worth our time and effort.
Well, it doesn't have to be, but it's still a lot of time, right? That is a chief complaint. It's a lot of time for the students, a lot of stress for the students. I mean, that's really if it's not giving you the full metrics, though, of what we need, and there's nothing wrong in saying it doesn't really fulfill our needs or giving us everything that we need to know. You don't have to drink.
Right.
You don't have to drink the Kool-Aid all the time.
Yeah, no, I'll put it down, but not as much as like Dan was saying in the beginning. We were looking at PARCC involving assessments more than just once a year. And that, as you know, that didn't come to fruition. So there was the possibility of showing growth within a year, but that would have meant more time as well. So.
Well, the report was excellent. It gave us a lot of information, probably more than what we were looking for, but really good stuff.
Good, thank you.
Okay, I have questions. Anybody else have questions first, though? Go ahead. Nope, go ahead. Okay. So I am thrilled with your level of detail that you provided, so thank you so much for that. And also the way in which you broke things out, that was very helpful. I think I wanted to go back to one point that you said, which was we were the highest unit district on PARCC, correct?
Correct. On PARCC, you look at large unit districts, K-12 districts, our performance was higher than any other unit district in the state of Illinois.
So I just want us to repeat that because it's such an outstanding accomplishment. I think that we have been very modest as we've talked about the fact that we're happy with our progress, but that's something that I think is got to be stated. That's very exciting. At the same time, seeing our achievement gaps, I am also, as we get this report and we see where we have some areas with some groups of students that we want to see succeed and more quickly, I'm also really grateful for the investment that we have put into the achievement gap. If anything, looking at this report, it shows exactly why we took those measures, why they're going to be helpful, and why this is going to continue to help our school district be even higher. Because as we continue to help all students succeed, just looking at those trends on the SAT, we don't look that different from our peers. We're still higher, but in some cases we look closer. But looking at that PARCC and knowing that over time, all those students are still going to be in our school district, I would anticipate that would mean that as we get, as we go forward in the years, the PARCC will really, not the PARCC, but our curriculum that is so effectively displayed in our, strong PARCC performance, that will continue to, distinguish our school district probably more. Like, that's what it seems like to me, just looking at how strong our,
Right.
And in terms of that question, Terry, about the PARCC, one thing about it is, from my perspective, it has really shown how rigorous our curriculum is. We are looking very strong, and not surprisingly, because of our strong, rigorous curriculum, that's still, though, again, something that's worth stating. I do have a couple questions for you in terms of the PARCC Promise, though. So you spoke about how originally it was supposed to have been a growth measure as well as a summative measure. Do you feel like we have what we need in terms of the predictability that we would like for those growth measures to be able to translate, so that we kind of know what we're going to see exhibited in our PARCC achievement?
If you're talking about the relationship between performance series and PARCC?
Yeah.
We do. Earlier in the fall, we did an analysis where we, attempted to understand the relationship between performance on performance series 3 times a year and its relationship to PARCC. And there's a strong relationship between the two. I mean, they're both, robust measures of academic achievement in reading and mathematics. There's no disputing that. But we have, I think, a clearer understanding now based on the work that I did in the fall, like how high or how well the students have to be doing on performance series to have a high probability or likely pass on PARCC the subsequent spring. That was a piece that we tried to shed a little more light on in terms of, what is the relationship between these two measures? Who's likely to be proficient? You can't predict absolutely an outcome with 100% certainty, in anything. I mean, weather, whatever, economic stuff. So try to get closer to understand the relationship between the two. For the time being, and given that's my first year, and, we're sort of on track with understanding how the two work together, we're also sort of, there's some unknowns about the certainty of PARCC and the future of PARCC and what that's going to look like. And, as we transition out of the Pearson contract and into sort of the next stage of PARCC, will we really be able to look longitudinally at this data and decide, it's stable, consistent, reliable, and valid enough to say that it's apples to apples across time, and we're not looking at changes that are due to changes in the assessment. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
There's a couple of variables in there, but performance series relates well to PARCC. It can be used, as a strong predictor of PARCC. So.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. And I know that I noticed your comments about the formative and summative assessments that are also going on in the classroom. I assume those are outside of the performance series, right?
Yes, they're outside of the performance series, and they're very obviously aligned to our curriculum.
Okay. So as long as we have, I thank you for all that you did to try to translate it, because that's something that has puzzled me as we've looked at the performance series and the PARCC,
Right.
seeing the growth patterns and then not seeing it translate to what, in my mind, it would in the PARCC. So thank you for the efforts that you've made with that. How are we, in terms of our state and how we're going to be held accountable? I know there was some long discussion making about the ESSA and how we're going to try to
Where's that going?
Yeah, how's that going, and how do you feel about our ability to meet the standards that they're setting, and frankly, what the standards are? How do you feel about that?
Well, the standards will still be, the accountability measurement will be still relative to the state of Illinois learning standards, right? So assuming those don't change, and it's probably not likely that they will, in one form or another, there'll be an achievement accountability measure that tries to get at how are we doing our job relative to the proportion of kids that meet standards.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to change. One thing that's a big shift is that half of all of it, 50% of how ESSA sort of conceptualizes accountability is growth. So there's going to be a process into the future in which at the school level and at the district level, there'll be data that support whether or not students are making adequate, more than adequate, or inadequate growth progress at the district level as well as at the school level. That's half of the current version of the assess accountability model. There's some unknowns with ESSA, and we have probably 2 to 3 state contacts that we stay in touch with as this evolves. Some of these pieces are under construction. I mean, we know what graduation rates are and chronic absenteeism looks like, but there's questions. I've got my little ESSA cheat sheet here. Climate survey is going to be a part of that. There are going to be some preschool to there's going to be a preschool to second grade indicator as well as an elementary and middle indicator looking at participation in specific academic areas. That's under construction as well. Science proficiency, we didn't talk about that because we still don't have the results from the last 2 years of science, by the way, but that will be part of ESSA. So there's a lot of kind of plates in the air, I guess balls in the air, as the state, puts out and proposes how to kind of put this puzzle together. One of my responsibilities is to sort of monitor that, keep an eye on that, understand it. And then, of course, once we get to a place where we have, some certainty or understanding that's relatively stable, we'd obviously share it with you. So, but overall, we're in a great spot. I hate to, whatever accountability measure, if it's measuring ELA or mathematics, we're going to do very well, right? It's not like we're going to be disadvantaged relative to some other district because, the rank order, it doesn't change that much. It's not like another district that, relative to us that historically has underperformed is suddenly going to be an overperformer. Do you know what I mean? So there's some certainty in terms of how we will measure up relative to peers. I think we're in a great spot. Who could say we're not? We did the best on a test that a lot of people say is really challenging, rigorous, and difficult, right? It's very different than the days of ISAT when, 92 to 95% of kids were proficient, if you remember that. I think we're in a great place, and whatever it happens, we'll figure it out. So.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to all of you for the leadership that has been shown both in,
You're welcome.
communicating the results, but really in performing. So, Paul, do you have a question? No. Anyone else have a question? No. Okay, thank you so much.
Sure, thanks for your time. You bet. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the item 7.05, the President's Report. In your public content, I have put a draft. As you all know, we'll be going before the Illinois Association of School Boards Delegate Assembly coming up here at the III Conference. And just wanting to be prepared for questions that we may receive. So I prepared this statement for the board's approval in terms of something that I can give if we get a lot of questions, or that I can use if we need to answer questions. I don't know, during Terry's resolutions committee, there were very few questions. However, even with some of the boards that we've discussed this with already, I'm still getting some questions about what we mean. And so I just wanted to be sure that we had something prepared that would answer questions if they do arise. Does anybody have any thoughts about the statement or about, and I did put the resolution in its format that we have suggested at the top, so that it's the new wording up at the top, and then the statement, which is mostly coming from our rationale, but tries to get at some of the questions. And I think probably some of the questions come from the fact that the resolution position statement, as it is recommended, doesn't specify everything that we put in the background statement. And so the questions are coming as to, for example, we stated that a school district would be able to recapture funds that come from state action. That's not actually in the top paragraph, but it's part of the background paragraph. So it's confusing some school districts because they don't see it up in the top. They do see the 3-year look back, which is in the very top, but it doesn't have every single detail we put in the rationale. So any thoughts about, I can also, as Terry expects, it may go without any questions, which I hope. But in the event that there is a dialogue or questions, I just wanted to have put forward sort of our board's sense about why we're doing this, so that I would have a prepared statement that had been approved by the board.
It does look good. There's two challenges on the table for the resolutions. It's the gun one, but, which I can't recall the other one at the moment, but the debate's going to be on those two issues. You can be sure of that. And I think that it might behoove you to think about some comments for those.
So to express our support for the resolution's recommendation, you mean?
Yes, do not adopt. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we can go over those
okay.
when we get on the floor. But
yeah,
so I spoke against the gun one last time, so I think this one will go pretty much. I think the only protest would be, well, it's not relevant to our district because we always have to levy full, so it's not helpful to us. That would be the only challenge to it.
Well, you could also say that the current position statement is broader than this one. We have narrowed the exceptions. We have narrowed the amount of time you can look back. We have narrowed what it's for. And so, somebody who would rather have a position statement that's more broad could object. And of course, our rationale for doing so is that the broad position statement has come to no help for us.
Right.
The legislature has sponsored it. And so that's kind of what we're looking at is, could we find something that would be amenable to the legislature that could actually provide us a tool that we could utilize?
You got to compromise. Yeah, I think of course, with the recent legislation categorizing the tiers, I think this resolution fits better with the new law than what the old one did.
Okay. All right, so if there's no comments, then I'll just utilize this if I need it and work with Terry on any additional areas where we might need to comment. Okay. All right, moving on to item 7.06, Board of Education reports. Janet?
So given the board and the district's focus on social and emotional learning, the investments and kind of just all the effort around there, I just thought the board and the public kind of be interested in knowing just some of the observations that I've seen in terms of how SEL has been implemented and possible means of measuring SEL in relation to kind of my interactions with my adoptive schools. So at Ann Reed, for example, it's been inspiring and frankly adorable to see like these little 3-year-olds helping in the classroom and helping set up and take down things to help, but also, it's very research-based, showing, and, based on research showing that students, even at that age level, get like a sense of self and well-being from those kind of actions. At Ellsworth, this was kind of echoed in the Madison presentation, but, you really see SEL interwoven into kind of the home and school and the SFCP, kind of activities, and to me at least, and I know all of you, I know everyone knows this, but it just was kind of a reminder that those initiatives are really kind of amplified by those parent and community interactions. And then finally, given the kind of our questions around measuring SEL. One thing I thought was pretty interesting from Lincoln was you have the school counselors taking these student surveys where they're looking at, at the grade levels, what people are interested or what people are worried about, I guess, or what students are worried about. And you see things like anxiety and stress come out, and you see kind of the differences and changes over time with those students. And, I really like how they're tracking those changes over time, and not only that, but kind of taking those results into consideration when they're kind of and doing the SEL curriculum and according to those results. And I thought that was really interesting and maybe something for us to continue paying attention to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exciting to hear those things in action. Another board report. Donna.
So I was able to attend a LEND meeting where we were 5 of our legislators that represent the number of districts that were there were able to attend. And it was just interesting. We heard a couple of things that the board would be interested in. We heard about Senate Bill 851, which is the property tax freeze proposal. And we were able to hear the legislators' point of view. We were able to hear a number of districts speak to the effect that would have on the district. And then we also had a presentation about dual credit and the challenges that districts are finding with dual credits. And Dan did a great job of speaking on behalf of our district as well. And just sharing with the legislators that some support, some legislation that would help better bring the schools to the two levels together to be able to provide dual credits for our students. So those are two things that are on the forefront and thought you'd like to know.
Any other board reports? Okay, moving on to discussion without action. Item 8.01, Summer School 2018.
I'd like to invite our Director of Summer Learning, Kevin Olkevich, to come forward to present our recommendations for Summer School 2018. As you know, Kevin has been serving as our leader for the summer school for the past several years. He's also currently serving as the assistant principal at Washington Junior High School. So Kevin, in collaboration with Mr. Ross and our learning services team, I have come forward with our recommendations in line with our strategic blueprint commitment on summer learning, and I'll turn it over to Kevin to present those recommendations.
Thank you. I'm grateful to sit before you tonight to present our recommendations for the 2018 Summer Learning Program. We continue to staff an excellent team of support staff, teachers, and administrators who are focused on providing opportunities to advance student learning. This year's outcomes will once again be tied to Blueprint Commitment 116E, providing recommendations that are a result of previous year's work and experiences with summer learning. In addition, we'll provide you with some details on our next steps with summer learning that will lead to informed decisions regarding future summer recommendations. Blueprint Commitment 116E is to implement summer school recommendations that maximize opportunities to advance student learning. And this slide represents the specific recommendations under 116E that have been the focus of our work since 2014. On this slide, you can see which of these recommendations we implemented for the 2017 Summer Learning Program, and at the October 2nd board meeting, we outlined the success of those recommendations. We continued the process of aligning summer school curricula to what is taught in the regular school year. As a result of work during the school years from fall of 2015 to spring of 2017, all elementary and junior high reading and math courses have been aligned with Common Core state standards. We've made significant progress in enrolling a greater percentage of economically at-risk students in summer school than are enrolled in our schools during the regular school year, a key factor in working to advance student learning. From summer of 2014 to summer of 2017, the number of economically disadvantaged students attending summer learning in the elementary program has gone from 13 to 44%, in the junior high from 9 to 32%, and from 11 to 26% in the high school program. We offered new courses at the junior high level and moved junior high ESY to the Gen Ed location to provide greater access for students. Additional positions were added in order to fully support elementary and EL students. Our summer programs are now staffed with psychologists, counselors, social workers, and special education staff and classroom assistants to mirror the support students receive during the regular school year. And finally, we began a partnership with the Naperville Public Library to support K-8 summer reading. We also partnered with Champions to support additional families in need of childcare after summer school hours. This is in addition to our continued partnership with the Naperville Park District, who ran after-school camps at our 2 elementary locations. We intend to implement all of these recommendations in 2018. In the summer of 2018, we will continue to focus on the specific steps outlined in Commitment 116E that have proven to be successful over the last 4 years. We will further focus on the specific commitments related to realigned curriculum and assessment, increasing access, additional support services, and new community partnerships in the coming year. We anticipate these improvements will help to maintain or increase summer learning enrollment in all programs, including students in our target populations. With respect to aligning curriculum, a committee under the supervision of Learning Services will upgrade and align young authors, inspired authors, and read, write, and run courses at the elementary level. At the high school level, new classes include Intro to Printmaking and Astronomy to capitalize on student interest and add variety to department offerings. Blended Algebra 1 and blended Spanish and French to improve student skills while capitalizing on the trend in online courses. Speech communication will be opened up to expand offerings for incoming 9th grade students, and EL speech and communication will be offered to help develop the presentation skills of our EL population. With respect to supporting students, due to high enrollment in particular grade levels in the elementary program and the literacy and math classes at the junior high level, combined with the increased enrollment from our target populations, additional staff are needed to reduce class size and meet student needs. We are recommending 3 additional teachers at each elementary site and 3 at the junior high site. This recommendation is dependent on enrollment in these programs staying steady or slightly improving in 2018. With respect to community partnerships, in 2018, we're proud to welcome a new partnership with the DuPage Children's Museum. The Children's Museum is committed to providing hands-on math activities for students in grades kindergarten through 4 throughout the summer. Learning labs such as pattern, strategies, and number sense, estimation station, geospace, math in action, and kids design engineering will be brought to the elementary sites on a weekly basis to engage students in real-world math activities. This partnership will be funded through grants and sponsorships through the museum and will support and enhance our summer math curriculum. Our goals for summer learning are related to continuing to build sustainable and fiscally responsible programs for our students while being sensitive to the needs of our community. We experienced significant increases in enrollment in 2016 due to our K-8 6-week offerings. We've increased both teaching and support staff numbers to meet the needs of students attending summer learning. We've increased community partnerships to help build student academic skills in reading and math and meet K-4 family needs for childcare after school. We've added classes in grades 6 through 12 to increase access, provided transportation and food service, and provided materials and professional development for staff. Our goals for 2018 are to continue to provide inclusive environments for all students in all programs by capitalizing on our work over the past 4 years, to maintain or improve enrollment in all summer programs, to maintain 2017 tuition levels after steadily increasing tuition over the past 4 years, and to capitalize on the trend to take more online classes at the high school level by offering more blended learning options to meet the needs of our older learners. While a look at spring to fall student data in 2017 gave us information that allowed us to make a promising conclusion that our summer learning programs help prevent summer learning loss, we would like to take a comprehensive look at our summer programs to ensure that we're providing our community with the very best services in a fiscally responsible manner. As a result, we will partner with Hanover Research this winter and spring to conduct a review of our programs and be able to report the findings to you next fall in order to design future summer experiences. We continue to be grateful for the board's investment in our summer learning programs, and I'm now glad to take your questions.
Thank you for that excellent report. Questions from the board? Okay, I have a couple questions.
Okay.
I don't see anyone else. Does anyone else? Okay, go Donna. That's fine. No, that's fine.
So in our executive summary, we have a lot more detail on the financial piece. I guess I could do this myself, but I thought maybe you might have it all together already. And if you don't, I'll do it myself. But I'd like to look at the expenses compared to last year and previous years so that we have some idea of the changes that are occurring.
Sure.
You don't need to answer that because we're not voting, but when we get to it.
Can we bring that?
Right,
You
next
want to
time.
see the side-by-side kind of?
Yeah, side by side for at least last year. I'd love to see more,
Great.
as many more years back. That would be great. Thanks.
Okay. All right. I don't want, okay. I'm excited to see, also not in your presentation, but also in the supporting document, was the mention of dual language offerings, and you mentioned that they were project-based learning courses. What can you tell us about how that will work?
I actually defer to Jane and Jen on that.
I can speak to that. We have actually been looking at it, exploring. We did a pilot this past summer just for a week with dual language students, and it was actually, it was as much of a pilot to look at project-based learning for our teachers. So it was with a Career 203 BRIC, where they could study the project-based learning design, which is an inquiry-based method, and then look at that within the dual language setting. I want to be really clear. One of the things that they were looking at was increasing Spanish language opportunities over the summer for the English-speaking population. So that was, one of the main points of that summer work. In terms of offering that in summer school, it's something that we're looking at the possibility of. However, our main goal is really to make sure that our English learner population and the work that we're doing there in summer school is our primary emphasis. So just exploration at this time, but not really bringing that dual language option forward at this time.
Okay. I'm sorry, I misunderstood that, but I see that. So it's predicted more for, you're just evaluating it, and it, like any courses would come in the following year?
Yeah, it's just, evaluating it, looking at the potential, seeing if there's interest at this time. Okay. Also really exploring it. One of our greatest struggles, as you might imagine, is the staffing. We absolutely have to staff the English learner portion. We also have our Jumpstart through Title I. And so we just have a lot of questions to answer yet.
Okay.
As we look into it.
So I had an adopted school that expressed quite a bit of interest in that. So it was something that I hadn't been, tracking. And so I appreciate the work that you're doing to try to look at additional models. And I also understand the difficulty with staff. You have a lot of needs that you're trying to meet with a lot of, probably some of the across of the same staff. So just wanting to make sure that you're able to do all the things that you need to do.
Right. And they all have different purposes. So we appreciate the opportunity to explore. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for all the information on your partnerships. It's exciting to see more partnerships. That's great. And thank you for your continued work to look at the naming of the courses and try to make them as exciting as you can. I think sometimes that burden of talking about summer school falls to the parents. And as I was talking with my own daughter about summer school this morning and she started crying, I thought, sometimes parents need to figure out how to say it in the exciting way, I think we still may, which shocked me, we still may, even in my own home, have, areas where we want to continue to tell students about the excitement and enrichment that's available, and not just the idea that it's when you're just catching up. I think sometimes the students still have that perception. So thank you for your work. I know the naming of the courses is not, it doesn't change the content, but sometimes it can help with that perception. How do parents, who are working to do the online, how do they know what level their teacher would suggest for them? So sometimes you're working on that online sign up, and you've given us great descriptions, and I know that some of that description is available, but how do you know what your teacher would suggest that you could do? Like, for example, I know that there are some really neat courses for 6th grade through 8th grade looking at writing. But for example, they will say, you are targeted for PI, but someone who likes writing can do what? How does a parent navigate that question? Or if they're coming from the side of trying to catch up, how do they know, would read, write, run be better than the straight enrichment course, or not enrichment, but like catch-up course? Like, how do you know what your teacher would want for you? What would be recommended?
I think parent-teacher conferences are scheduled pretty timely here in the winter and February, so that once registration opens, parents can start having those conversations in February with the teachers about what classes would be appropriate for their child. And we count on our teachers a lot to be able to promote that and make those recommendations.
Okay. That's very helpful. And for people who are a little behind and aren't working on their summer right at February, I know that we start in January, but the more that we can, I know that seems technologically difficult, but the more that we can make it easy for someone who is signing on and might not have an opportunity to think of connecting with the teacher, and they're just trying to sign up and make sure that they get in for the wraparound, or, the more that they can access in that online process, the better. I'm not a technological person, but if there's a way to highlight the ones when you go into your student profile and have the highlight, I don't know. It's just something that crosses my mind in terms of, the parents who are signing up the kids that may not have had a chance to talk in the February because they weren't thinking about their summer.
Right.
Thank you for all your work. It's exciting to see the continued improvement, and I'm excited to see the future. And if there's no more questions, I know that. Oh, okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to, I only asked one question, and as I'm sitting here, I'm thinking to myself, I should have thanked you as well, because especially for our newer board members, the amount of progress that we've made in the 5 years that I've been on the board from where it was when we started to where we're at now is just tremendous. And the access that you've created and the opportunity that we've created for students. And so I know that a lot of that is you, Kevin. I know a lot of that is the administration and the cabinet behind you. But I think that our community needs to realize that how much of an opportunity you've created for them, and tried to cover every aspect of making it easy for them, from transportation to the after school, the additional YMCA programs that they're connected with. So you've done an excellent job as you, the collective you. But thank you, Kevin, for that leadership.
Yep, thanks. It's been a real coordinated effort, so I appreciate all the work and support that I get.
And it's exciting to see your continued effort, not just to make it easy for us, but to continue to improve the product. So like that Hanover study, that's going to be exciting to see. I commend all of you for looking at continuing to improve. And as our population changes, as we have success in attracting a different population and a population that we really want to serve well to summer school, to just continue to see how we can continue to improve our supports to ensure that we're able to provide for them what we hope. So thank you for that continued effort to keep on getting better in that way as well.
Thanks. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to invite our Chief School Business Official, our CFO, Marcy Boyan, to provide rationale for the Board of Education regarding a resolution designating interest earnings for the fiscal year 2017-2018. Marcy?
Thank you. Through conversations with our auditors over the last couple of years, occasionally there are months when expenses exceed revenues in a specific fund. This creates a negative end balance in that fund. It's mostly due to timing of receipts. The ability to transfer interest to a fund most in need would allow the opportunity to prevent a deficit in any given month during the year. This situation is primarily due to the abatement of the debt service levy and having expenses there before receipt of transfers. The school code was amended in 2008-2009 school year to declare that absent board resolution to the contrary, interest earnings in any fund will be considered part of the principal for that fund as of June 30th of each fiscal year. This change essentially places limits on a school district's ability to transfer interest earnings from one fund to another. The recommendation is to prevent limiting board authority. It is respectfully recommended that the Board of Education adopt a resolution in the near future declaring all interest earned in the current fiscal year to retain designation as interest and further preserve the board's option to transfer said interest to other fund types.
Thank you, Marcy. Questions from the board?
What measures might you have to take if that interest is not available? What other sources of financing might you have to reach out to use?
We would do a transfer of funds from the fund balance from another fund to the one most in need. Through resolution.
Yeah, we have to take board action to move the money, which is essentially what we're doing now. It's just giving board action in advance of the problem arising.
But thank you for coming up with this solution that helps us to have additional flexibility. All right, if there are no questions, if anyone has questions, we can have those in the next time before the next board meeting, as we're not taking action on this evening. Okay, moving on to item 8.03, policy review, first reading policies 2.104, internal organization of the board, and 2.220, school board meeting procedure.
At our last Board of Education meeting, the board had conversation at the request of one of its members on policy 2.104 and 2.220. Based on conversation among the board, Mr. Ross, our Chief Operating Officer, who's our policy guru, has prepared for you versions of the policy, proposed policy, we think reflective of your conversation. Mr. Ross, if you want to speak to those, or if there's anything additional to say, and then we'll turn it over to the board.
Just that we typically do, ladies and gentlemen of the board, we have the current policy, and then if you scroll down the proposed, the changes are not many. Some are significant. We'd be happy to try to answer any questions. Would you like to take them one at a time, Mrs. Fitzgerald?
Okay. Thank you for that. Questions from the board or comments? I know, Terry, this was your initial wanting to bring it. Does this express your intent?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll take them one by one. Questions on item 2.104 or thoughts? Does anyone have any questions? Okay, I have one question, just a point of discussion. So I think that you have expressed that this is more consistent with our current policy of our 2-year term. How would a future board, if there were to be such a board, and they were to decide that they were interested in something different, how would they go about doing that? Would it just be a simple policy change?
Yes, unless there's some kind of law between now and then that would prevent that.
Right.
The future board would have the ability to
Modify the
make a
thing.
policy change in the same way that this board is contemplating one.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions or comments about the proposed change, which would be more of a consistent policy with our 2-year policy?
Just going back to your comment, the board would have to change the policy from 2 years to 1 year. That would be the term of the president. That's really what you'd have to do.
Right. I mean, I'm just questioning this.
Just your question is how would the board shorten the term of the president? What the law says is that you have to amend the policy to say not 2-year term, but a 1-year term.
Okay. And I think we did act just recently on our term, setting the term as 2. Any questions from the board or thoughts? No. Okay. Okay, so if questions come up, we can take those questions, you can send them to Bob, or we can have them in the discussion, but this would be for action in the next board meeting. Okay. Moving on to 2.220.
And in that policy, once again, you'll see the current, you scroll down, you see the proposed. We're proposing a couple of additions in red. The first line of the first paragraph would add "and Vice President are," and then third line down again, add the words "and Vice President."
Okay. Questions or comments from the board? Okay.
So as acting vice president, I just want to say that what this does is better reflects what our practice is, and what our practice has been for the 5 years that I've been on the board, longer than that, for all the years that Terry's been on the board.
Longer than that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just wanted the other board members and our community to realize that this isn't really a change, it's more of a reflection of what we're currently doing. It's a change in policy to reflect what we currently practice.
Yes, which it should, yes.
And I think we actually made this change in one area of our policy, but just forgot to conform this area here.
That's correct.
So, okay, if there's no questions on that one, Then again, action will be at the next board meeting. Okay, moving on to item 9.01, Board of Education Expenses, 10/19/17.
In compliance with state law, Board of Education Policy 2-125 requires that all board member expenses for travel, meals, and/or lodging be approved by roll call vote in an open meeting of the board. You have documentation regarding receipts of expenses for board members, for 6 of our board members for attending Illinois Association of School Boards DuPage Division Fall Dinner and Meeting. So, happy to take any question. We'll need a motion to approve professional learning expenditures for board members Christopher Fitzgerald, Terry Fielden, Janet Yang Rohr, Donna Wanke, Kristen Kirky, and Paul Leong.
Questions from the board on the action item? I would love to have the board make a couple comments about the event so that we could talk a little bit about, the purposes of that and what we gained from it.
Let's first pat yourselves on the back for earning your second school board governance recognition by the Illinois Association of School Boards. That award is given to school districts throughout the state who model exemplary governance practices. So congratulations to this board.
Does anybody want to give their thoughts about any of the presentations that we had that evening? I know we had a great resolutions chair report as well as a performance or a presentation on the art of school boarding.
The shorter I give that report, the more people like it. That's a higher in the point scale. It goes up.
We appreciate it, though.
Yeah. Look, the dinners are important for a couple of reasons. The first one is the networking with the other boards within DuPage County. Gives us a chance to meet and commiserate with other board members, figure out what's going on in their districts, and sometimes we learn how good we have it as opposed to what some other districts are going through. The other part is that the IASB offers some education at these dinners, and they bring in a guest speaker to either talk about issues like security or state funding or other issues that are relevant to board members as a whole. And those aspects are important that we go to these types of events because we want to be continuously improving ourselves. And the only way you can do that is to be active in an organization that's offering such educational purposes. And we're all going to go, well, the majority of us will go down next week to the III conference, and we'll have a great opportunity to attend a variety of sessions and so forth, and also talk to other board members, which is really important. You'll be amazed at what you learn just in talking to other people.
I totally agree. That was fantastic. Thank you for that summary of some of the great things that we've been able to gain from that. Christine.
Echoing what Terry was saying about the networking piece, as a new board member, for me, it would be easy to just stay in my bubble and learn what I need to learn here and concentrate on what we're doing. But an event like this dinner and then the conference we have coming up, I know will be helpful to hear what everybody else is doing, which then, sparks our own ideas and things to talk about when we run into each other, in a hallway at a conference or something. So it's appreciated that I have these opportunities to go out there and meet people and commiserate and just see what else is happening.
Great. Okay, if there's no additional comments, thank you for the summary of the great value of these events, and I would entertain a motion to adopt the expenses.
I move to approve item 9.01 as presented.
A motion and a second are heard. Will you please call the roll, Ms. Bell?
Fielden?
Yes.
Leong? Aye. Wanke? Yes. Gerke? Yes. Yang Rohr? Aye. Fitzgerald?
Aye. Okay, the motion passes. Okay, moving on to item 10, old business. Item 11, new business. Item 12, upcoming events. I noticed, thank you for putting the III conference on there. It's great to highlight that, as that is our next opportunity for very rigorous continuing education. I noticed that we don't have the focus. Do you want to mention that?
I don't know that we have complete details on it just yet, but we are planning a Focus 203 session for the evening of November 30th and the morning of December 1st, and we'll be pushing out some communication. We're going to finalize some of that very quickly and get that out to our community.
Wonderful. Any other additional events want to highlight? Okay. We will not be adjourning right this moment. We will be returning to closed session. No action will be taken in the closed session, and once we are done with the closed session, we will just adjourn. So I will entertain at this point a motion to return to closed session for the consideration of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district.
Second.
A motion and a second are heard. Will you please call the roll?
Leon. Aye. Fielden.
Yes.
Fitzgerald.
Aye.
Gerke. Yang Rohr. Wanke.
Yes.
Okay, we are in closed. Thank you, everyone.